Remnant, 25 Bible verses about remnant. 25 Bible verses about what the Bible says about remnant. List verse and description. Isaiah 10:21. A remnant will return, the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty God. This verse speaks of a remnant of the people of Israel who will return to God. Isaiah 11:11. On that day the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the remnant that is left of his people. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore a remnant of his people. Isaiah 17:3. The fortress will disappear from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria will be like the glory of the children of Israel, declares the Lord Almighty. This verse speaks of a remnant of the people of Syria who will be restored to glory. Isaiah 37:4. It may be that the Lord your God will hear the words of the field commander, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to ridicule the living God, and that he will rebuke him for the words the Lord your God has heard. Therefore pray for the remnant that still survives. This verse speaks of God's protection of the remnant of the people of Israel. Isaiah 37:31. The surviving remnant of the house of Judah will again take root downward and bear fruit upward. This verse speaks of the remnant of the people of Judah who will be restored to their land. Isaiah 45:17. Israel will be saved by the Lord with an everlasting salvation. You will never be put to shame or disgraced, to ages everlasting. This verse speaks of God's promise to save the remnant of his people. Isaiah 47:6. I was angry with my people and desecrated my inheritance. I gave them into your hand, and you showed them no mercy. Even on the aged you laid a very heavy yoke. This verse speaks of God's judgment on the remnant of his people. Jeremiah 31:7. For there will be a day when watchmen will call out on the hills of Ephraim, come, let us go up to Zion, to the Lord our God. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Jeremiah 31:10. Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, proclaim it in distant coastlands. He who scattered Israel will gather them and will watch over his flock like a shepherd. This verse speaks of God's promise to gather and care for the remnant of his people. Jeremiah 50:20. In those days, at that time, declares the Lord, search will be made for Israel's guilt, but there will be none, and for the sins of Judah, but none will be found, for I will forgive the remnant I spare. This verse speaks of God's promise to forgive the remnant he spares. Ezekiel 6:8. Yet I will leave a remnant, for some of you will escape the sword when you are scattered among the lands and nations. This verse speaks of God's promise to leave a remnant of his people. Ezekiel 11:17. Therefore say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I will gather you from the nations and bring you back from the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you back the land of Israel again. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Ezekiel 20:34. I will bring you from the nations and gather you from the countries where you have been scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with outpoured wrath. This verse speaks of God's judgment on the remnant of his people. Ezekiel 34:12. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on a day of clouds and darkness. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Ezekiel 36:24. For I will take you out of the nations, I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Hosea 1:10. Yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which cannot be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, they will be called children of the living God. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Micah 5:3. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor gives birth and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Zephaniah 3:12. I will leave within you a meek and humble people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. This verse speaks of God's promise to leave a remnant of his people. Zechariah 8:11. But now I will not deal with the remnant of this people as I did in the past, declares the Lord Almighty. This verse speaks of God's mercy on the remnant of his people. Zechariah 10:6. I will strengthen Judah and save the tribes of Joseph. I will restore them because I have compassion on them. They will be as though I had not rejected them. For I am the Lord their God and I will answer them. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Zechariah 10:9. I will whistle for them and gather them in, for I have redeemed them, and they will be as numerous as they were before. This verse speaks of God's promise to restore the remnant of his people. Malachi 3:16. Then those who feared the Lord talked with each other, and the Lord listened and heard. A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored his name. This verse speaks of God's promise to remember the remnant of his people. Romans 11:5. So too, at the present time there is a remnant chosen by grace. This verse speaks of a remnant of the people of God who are chosen by grace. Romans 11:26. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godlessness away from Jacob. This verse speaks of God's promise to save the remnant of his people. Revelation 7:4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. This verse speaks of the remnant of the people of Israel who will be sealed by God. Remnant Bible meaning. Exploring the profound significance, Remnant, Bible, PDF, quiz, classes, father, grandfather, minister, missionary, deacon, elder, author. Welcome to our family. View all posts.